Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Gigi, and on this video we're going to talk about what sleep is, what happens if we don't get enough sleep, and also what are some things you can do and some tips that you can take even for starting today that will help you get a better night's sleep. So, as these last few years, actually, there's been a lot more research into sleep and revealing exactly how important it is to our life and to our bodies. So you can see here we can go about a month without food and about a week without water, and these are all things vital that we need to do, obviously, and we do them daily. And also, sleep is as important. We can only go without sleep for about 11 days. We actually can die if we don't go to sleep. So it is a very vital part of our health. And of course, there's a pandemic nowadays of internet. So there are some people that can't go without internet with not even an hour. Maybe some of these people you know, or they could be even you. So something to think about with that one. So before I get started, I want to go over what happens and how do we go to sleep and all these things. So before we go into the stages, we have two hormones in our body that are basically involved with the circadian rhythm. And circadian rhythm is basically an internal clock that we have that basically keeps time and tells us when it's time for us to wake up and when it's time for us to go to bed, and a lot of other different things happening in our body that have to happen during certain times of the day. So we have two hormones that are tightly related to sleep, and that is melatonin and cortisol. So melatonin is what basically prepares our body to fall asleep. So it typically secretes around 6 p.m. and then it starts increasing until around 6 p.m. around 3 to 4 p.m. it will peak and then it will start dropping again, and then we'll have cortisol start increasing, and that's what will wake us up in the morning. So melatonin's job is to prepare bodies by decreasing our heart rate, decreasing our breathing, decreasing our core temperature to put us in that sleepy mode. But it is not what actually puts us to sleep. I would say it prepares us for sleep, but it's not actually what puts us to sleep. What puts us to sleep is adenosine, and this is a molecule that basically happens through the degradation of ATP. And ATP is our energy molecule. So the more we do throughout our day, the more we exert ourselves, the more adenosine we will create. And the more adenosine we have, the more sleepier we will get until we hit a threshold where we have to now go to sleep. So melatonin, yes, will help us and prepare us, but it actually is not what puts us to sleep. And this comes to the point of a lot of people do take melatonin to go to sleep, which is an over counter supplement, and they don't realize that actually they're taking a hormone. And when we're taking a hormone, that can cause imbalances and also can cause for the body not to produce melatonin on its own, because when we put a hormone in our body, then we naturally will stop making it, because we won't need to, because we're getting it from another source. So it's really important to be mindful when we're taking melatonin. In some situations, it might be good. You might need it if you're jet lagged. Sometimes for people that are older in age might need melatonin because naturally as we age, our melatonin secretion decreases. But if you are younger, then you talk with your doctor first and see if that actually is what you need, because you might be doing more harm than good in the end and causing an imbalance with your hormones there. So, with that being said, once we actually go to bed now and we start, sleeping, we go through different cycles. So, we typically go through 5 to 6 cycles, which are about 90 minutes. And within those 90 minutes, we have different stages. There's two main stages, which is the non-REM sleep and the REM. So non-REM is non-rapid eye movement, REM is rapid eye movement. And within those two stages, we have other little sub stages. So the first part, the non-REM, is basically the time that we start falling asleep. So we have four stages within that. And the first part is when our body starts to decrease in temperature, breathing goes down, heart rate goes down, and we start getting drowsy and we start drifting into the light sleep. Light sleep is when basically, if some people might jerk at that point. Might have a dream that you're falling and you wake up. So that is when that happens, is during our light sleep. Also during our light sleep is when we have sleep spindles, and these are basically these flashes that they see in our nervous system, that gets produced in our brain, these waves. And what they've seen that associated with is muscle memory. So if you're like an athlete or you're a musician and you've been trying to learn a specific, part or musical instrument or something like that, the more sleep spindles you get, the more muscle memory you create, and you're able to basically ingrain what you learn in your physiology and in your brain too. So you can see, if you have had several of these sleep spindles, then typically the next day you're able to play that instrument or do whatever you were practicing the day before even better. So that's really important for athletes, as I said, musicians, but not only for those people, also for things, for school and things like that, that you're trying to learn something new. Then you want to have more sleep spindles. The As we're transitioning through these sleep stages, we start going into that moderate and deep sleep. This is when you're very difficult to wake up from here. If you do wake up at this point of your sleep, then you're going to be very groggy. You won't know where you're at, and it's just harder to wake up during this time. During this time, this is really important for healing. You basically reboot your immune system during this time. Parents might have noticed that children will typically spike a fever during their sleep. And this happens because our body, or immune system, is working during that time, and it is regenerating tissue. It is fighting, viruses and bacteria. So that's why it's so important to, sleep during times when you're sick. Also, you have more growth hormone secreted during that time. So for kids that are growing, that's really important, but not only for kids, but also for adults, because with the growth hormone, we are able to repair tissues and regenerate cells. So overall, that during this deep sleep, we're regenerating our whole body, and it's vital to our health. Also, they've seen something really cool in the brain. We have these cells called glia cells that are part of the lymphatic system. And it's basically like the lymphatic system that we have in our body, but it is in our brain, in our head. So these cells, what happens, they'll see during the deep sleep, they will decrease, they'll shrink in size, and they'll allow for the CSF fluid, or spinal cerebral fluid, to wash away and go through all the neurons and around and wash away all the waste products that have happened throughout the day, especially like beta amyloid plaques that can get accumulated and need to be cleared out, and that happens during that time. What they've seen is when we do have a increase in beta amyloids, this is associated with dementia and Alzheimer's. So sleep can be really helpful and even prevent things like that can happen later on in our lives. Once we get into our deep sleep, now we start going backwards, actually. We transition back into moderate sleep and then light sleep. But instead of waking up at that time, we go into our REM sleep. And that is during the time that we actually dream. A lot of people think this is a time that, we'll sleepwalk, or we'll start maybe talking or doing anything like that. But actually, during our REM sleep, our bodies are really smart. So what they'll do is they'll cut off any communication at the brainstem, so that any messages or any nervous impulse that happens in the brain, which is really active during our REM sleep because it's our dreaming phase, will not go down into our body, and actually we are not acting out what we're dreaming. So we won't get up and run or do anything like that, because basically our brain will paralyze our body so that we are not moving. So a lot of times the sleepwalking, or people that might start talking during their sleep, happens basically during that first non-REM sleep stage of our sleep. Actually, during our REM sleep, it's really important for memory. So that's when we start consolidating and bringing short-term memories into long-term memories. So really important, especially when we have an exam the next day and we've studied. You want to make sure that you've taken enough sleep. That way, you can remember what you've read the day before, so that you can do good in the exam. Also, this is associated. The REM sleep is associated with creativity, because scientists have seen that our neurons will fire and connect in ways that they will never connect when we're awake. So this helps with thinking out of the box and being really creative, because our brain is thinking in different ways. Also, it is really like a therapy during nighttime, like really like having a therapist and talking through your emotions, because during to this REM sleep, we're processing emotions and processing things that happen throughout the day. There was a cool study that they did, and they saw they took couples that had a really bad breakup, and they interviewed them a year later, and they saw the ones that had more, they dreamt more about the breakup or about their ex-partner. They actually were in a better place at that year later. They were more content with what had happened, and they were in a happier mood, whereas the ones that didn't seemed to be stuck still in that in that breakup, and still feel bad feelings and being sad or depressed. So it's really, really important to get that REM sleep, because for everything, for memory, creativity, as I said, emotional process, all that stuff. So that to do all that non and REM sleep, it takes about 90 minutes to complete that. Once we complete the 90 minutes, then we go back again. We go back to the light sleep, as I said, into the deep sleep, back out to the light sleep, and then into REM sleep. And this happens about 5 to 6 times throughout throughout the night. And also, another thing to point out is in the beginning, so the first time that you go through that 90-minute cycle, the most of that 90 minutes is going to be during our deep and moderate sleep. We're going to stay in that a lot longer. And then as the cycles pass and we go into like our fourth and fifth cycle of sleep, then at that point, it's highly more into that REM sleep that we're going to be at, and maybe very little in the deep sleep. So it is important to get the full 7 to 9 hours of sleep, because we're getting different parts of those stages, as I talked about. And that's why mainly you'll remember your dreams if you have slept in, because you've had more chance to get into those last cycles where REM sleep is going to be a lot longer compared to the first cycles that we do in the beginning of our sleep. So that's what happens when we are at sleep. Now, as I said, we want to get about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. Now, if we don't get that, what happens to our bodies? Well, there's a lot of things that can happen to our bodies, a lot of devastating things, actually. We can increase our sympathetic activity. What does that mean? Our nervous system has two parts of it. It has the parasympathetic and the sympathetic. Parasympathetic is where we basically rest, digest, we heal during that time. And then sympathetic is where we're our nervous system more excitatory. This is when we are stressed out, when you see, something and you got to run away from it, like a lion or something like that. This is the sympathetic firing. So if we don't get enough sleep, they've seen that we are more sympathetic and are more stressed out, basically, which is going to be devastating because we have now more cortisol, and now we're not going to be able to actually sleep at night because our melatonin is not going to get secreted properly. But also we're going to feel more stress, which comes with a lot of other burdens to our bodies. We also are going to be obviously tired. There's this thing called micro sleeps, which we don't really we even realize that are happening. And micro sleeps are for just a few seconds. Our brain will shut down and basically act like it's sleeping, because if we're deprived and we haven't slept, it will have to do that because it needs those moments to reset. So we're basically falling asleep for, those 2-3 seconds. And what happens with microsleep, if this happens during the time that we are actually driving, then we can cause some major accidents. And actually, one of the leading causes of car accidents is people that are falling asleep. The other thing is that we're going to be more vulnerable to colds and flus, right? We said during deep sleep, that's when we get all our healing. If we're not sleeping, guess what? We're going to be more vulnerable to bacteria and viruses that come in contact with us. And we can't prevent that from happening because we're, surrounded with people, we're doing things. So your bodies are always fighting and coming in contact with colds and flu and with bacteria and viruses. So it's really important to get that sleep so that our immune system is strong enough to actually deal with these things and actually kill them off. The same thing with cancer. If we are in high stress, we're not getting sleep, we're not regenerating, during our deep sleep, then we are more prone to get, cancer. Actually, the CDC put out, right, and listed that one of the reasons of cancer is night shifts, which is really, crazy to think about that. And I know there's a lot of, nurses and, doctors and people that work night shifts, and they're getting exposed and having a higher risk to cancer because of the fact that they're not getting enough sleep. Also, weight gain can be an issue with, not sleeping, because we have two hormones, leptin and ghrelin. And these hormones, so leptin helps us, allows for our bodies and our brain basically to tell us we are full, we don't need to eat, whereas ghrelin does the opposite. Is our hungry hormone, so it will make us want to eat and get more nutrients in our bodies. So what happens, they've seen that if we don't get enough sleep, ghrelin will increase and leptin will decrease. So now we're more prone to, gaining weight, which will also can lead into diabetes and other, issues like heart disease and things like that. And also with heart disease, if we're not allowing for our hearts to slow down, and during which will happen during our sleep, then we are more prone to heart attacks and things like that. It will affect our skin and our circulation. Obviously, as we said, if we're not regenerating ourselves, then we'll have poor skin. And even reproductively, without getting sleep, we will males will have a decrease in testosterone, and also females will have imbalances with their estrogen and progesterone, and which can cause fertility issues. Obviously, sex drive will decrease if our reproductive hormones are not in balance, and it will affect coordination and athletic performance if you're an athlete. So these are just, things that can happen in our bodies. There are also things that could happen with our brain too, and our behavior if we're not getting enough sleep, from mood shifts to being more irritable, not being able to deal with stressors we come upon throughout our day. We won't be able to concentrate, we won't be able to be productive. You probably won't want to socialize and be a lot more grumpy. Your creativity can go down. And generally, it will, start causing maybe depression, anxiety, things like that. And people that are diagnosed with insomnia, one of the biggest things, other symptoms that they have is being anxious and depressed. So it's really, really, really important to get enough sleep and getting the full 7 or 9 hours, depending on, on your age and your, if you're female or male, all that plays role. But you do want to get at least 7 to 9 hours of sleep. So now that we went through all of the devastating things that happen when we don't get enough sleep, what are some things that are going to help us to be able to stay asleep and fall asleep and also have that quality of sleep? So, sleep starts from the morning. So, there are things that you can do throughout the day that are going to prepare you for better sleep. One of the things is sunlight. And I would say that's one of the most important things you can do. Starting your day with going out and getting that sun and not wearing glasses so that you're able to get that sunlight. What happens is in the back of our eyes, in the retina, we have these sensors that detect light, and it's really important to have that because our eyes are basically connected to that to our hypothalamus, which is what helps to start secreting melatonin, which will then tell the pineal gland to secrete the melatonin. And if we're not getting that sunlight and we're getting all this artificial light from LED lights and are closed, then our circadian rhythm basically will be thrown off, and our brains won't know if it's day or night and what to do. So it's really, really important to get early in the day to get some sunlight. So this doesn't mean that you have to sit like for hours in the outside. I'm talking about 10, 20 minutes taking a walk before you get to work, absorbing the sun. Try not to wear sunglasses just so that you can get that sunlight, at least for the first 10 minutes there. So even like with blind people, which is interesting, which they wear a lot of times glasses, it's really important to get those sunglasses off, because even blind people, even though they might have destroyed some part of the eye and the retina there, but that sensor of day of light is still there. So it's really important. So if you need to have that sunlight being absorbed there, so that your brain can be able to realize what time it is. So one of the things is getting out there and getting enough sunlight. Another thing is having a caffeine curfew. I know this is not going to be a popular one, and people are going to be moaning, groaning when they hear this, but what happens is caffeine has a very similar molecule to adenosine, and what it does, it goes and binds to the receptors of the adenosine. If you remember, as we said, adenosine is really important to build up throughout our day so that we can actually go to sleep at night. So if we're drinking coffee at 3 o'clock, in the afternoon, then when we're trying to go to sleep, we won't be able to. And actually, caffeine has a half life of 6 hours. What does that mean? So, 6 hours after we drink our coffee, 6 hours after that, we still have half of that caffeine in our bloodstream. So, it's going to make us more excited. We won't be able to fall asleep. Also, this is the reason, because of the fact that caffeine attaches to those adenosine receptors. This is why a lot of times we will feel like we crash after a while after we drink our coffee, because once the coffee is out of our system, then those receptors get released again, and they're open for the adenosine. And then because of all the buildup of the adenosine, they're gonna attach real fast onto those receptors, and we'll feel like we're crashing actually. So when you're, trying to drink coffee, I would say keep it to the early hours of the day. Don't go past, depending on what time you're trying to sleep. Make sure that it's early enough that it's not now 6 hours later, you're still having half of that caffeine running through your body and you're trying to go to sleep. And I know a lot of people might be saying, "Oh, well, I drink, my cappuccino or espresso after I eat dinner, and I still fall asleep." Well, typically that's because of probably by that time you've built up so much adenosine that you're already tired, and those receptors already been taken from adenosine all day. So at this point, even though you're drink the coffee, it's not gonna affect you in the way that you can go to sleep. But what it will do, because it's still there, it will affect your quality of sleep. And what they've seen is that, drinking coffee and having coffee in your system, it will affect your REM sleep, and it will make it a lot more fragmented, and you'll wake up more often too than you would if you hadn't drank that coffee. The same thing goes with alcohol. And a lot of people will say, well, I need to, drink my glass of wine at night and it helps me go to sleep. What happens with alcohol, it is a sedative. So what it does, it sedates you, just like a medication would do. A sleeping medication would do the same thing. But what the problem is with that is sedation is not sleep. It basically, all those stages that we talked about, it basically blocks everything, and you just are not doing anything, because during our sleep we actually, our brain is firing and it's working and it's doing a lot of things as we talked about. So if you are, drinking alcohol, you're basically sedating yourself, and you're not going to get the full sleep, and it actually will also affect, especially that REM sleep again, and it will probably make you wake up more because you'll have to go to the bathroom too. So avoiding alcohol is going to be really important. At least 3 hours, I would say, before you go to bed. Try not to have any alcohol. Nicotine too is going to affect your sleep, because again, it's a stimulant, and it will make you more alert, more awake. So you want to, and also, obviously, smoking has other issues, health issues that it's going to cause. It can cause difficulty with breathing, which can also cause sleep apnea, which will affect your sleep as well. So making sure to quit that habit is going to be important overall for your health, but also for your sleep. Now, fixing your gut, as we said, losing weight, again, that's going to be important. Obesity has been shown to have an effect on sleep as well, because of the fact of insulin. And they've seen that people like with diabetes, that have high blood glucose, have a lot of sleep issues, and are, especially when they're not able to fall asleep typically. A big thing is, even if you don't have diabetes, obviously, just eating any type of sugary food late night will affect your sleep, and will basically not allow you to get that good night's sleep. And also, if you're having high blood sugar, that can also affect also how many times you get up to go to the bathroom. One of the things that people with diabetes have to deal with is getting up often to go to the bathroom, and it's because the kidneys are going to be working to flush all that increased sugar in your blood. So making sure that you're not eating sugary things late night is going to be really important, so that you can go to bed. Try to keep it more to like things like nuts, things like with less sugar, like berries and things like that, instead of having, I don't know, like a pizza late at night, or cookies and ice creams and things like that, which I know typically that's when we mostly eat those things. But if you're trying to, fix your sleep, and you're trying to get, a good night's sleep, then you want to avoid eating these things late night before you go to bed. Another thing is exercise. Exercise is really important and will help us, because it's going to build up that adenosine, right? The more we're using our bodies, the more adenosine that we're going to have. And it's really good. Overall, for a better night's sleep, you want to either do it in the morning. You don't want to do it too late. The thing is, so around 5 to 7 is a good time to work out, but you don't want to do it later than that, because if you're trying to sleep now around like 9, 10 o'clock, your body temperature is going to be raised up, and it's going to take some time for it to get lower down. So until that happens, you're not going to be able to fall asleep. So you want to make sure that you do work out, but the workouts are earlier in the day if you can, or at least don't pass too later than 7, where that now it's going to affect your sleep. A thing that I get asked a lot is about napping. And napping depends if you should do that on, what's going on. So if you have had difficulty in sleeping at night and you can't fall asleep, then I would recommend not to nap. Again, as we said, if you're trying to build up that adenosine, you want to, when you go to bed, you want to have hit that threshold where you're ready to go to bed. If you do a nap, what happens is you decrease that, some of that adenosine. So now you're going to have to, stay up maybe later until you actually build up enough adenosine to go to bed again. So if you have an issue with sleeping, I would say do not nap. Now, if you are a person that is doing a lot of activities, you're like maybe a athlete and you're training all day, then taking a nap in between is not a bad thing. It will help you, recover. It will help you to, have more energy for the rest of the day. So taking about a 20-minute nap is perfect. I wouldn't go further than that because then you start going into that deeper sleep. And especially if you're going to, you don't want to wake up when you're in deep sleep because, as I said, you're going to be super groggy. You're going to be very difficult to wake up and you're going to feel worse than what you did. So you want to keep it to about 20 minutes. That way you just get into that light sleep. So, which will still help you recover some of that adenosine and you'll feel more fresh and more energized, but it won't make you groggy by being into that deep sleep. So again, for some people it's going to be good. For others, maybe not so good. So try, if you're having an issue with sleeping at night, then I would definitely not take any naps. As I said again, staying busy, so working out, doing things throughout the day is going to help build up that adenosine. You don't want to be, all day sitting on the couch, watching TV, exerting yourself very little because, yeah, of course, your body's not going to be, tired enough to go to sleep. So you want to be doing things. You don't want to do activities. You want to, do some type of hobby, maybe learning something because, yes, even like, studying and learning a different language, playing an instrument, all these things are going to exert energy for our bodies and our brains to do these things. So these are things that you want to be doing throughout the day to help you to get a better sleep. And then, of course, as a chiropractor, I'm going to recommend getting adjusted. I tell all my, new patients that I adjust for the first time, some of the things that they can expect is a better sleep. Why? Because as we talked in the slide before, we have that parasympathetic and sympathetic part in our nervous system. So with adjustments, what researchers have seen is that we can, if we're reducing stress in the body and in the muscles and the joint area there, and also allow for the nervous system to work properly, then we're reducing stress, and that will bring our body into that parasympathetic mode instead of that sympathetic mode. Also, getting adjustments in the neck and on the top part here where our C1 is, our first bone, that's really important. If there's a misalignment there, that can cause interference with our sleep because this is the closest to our brainstem. And if you remember, a lot of things get regulated at our brainstem, like breathing patterns and our temperature and our blood pressure. So if there's any tension or any stress in that area, that can affect the way that our body can prepare itself to go to sleep. So it's really important to getting adjusted. So now, what can we do to prepare our room for a better sleep? So some of the things we want to do is keep it very cool. You want your room to be about 65 degrees. That I know sounds very low, but it really helps because, as we said, one of the things that you want, that melatonin even does, is decreasing our body temperature so that we can get a better sleep and to stay asleep. So keeping our room very cool is going to be detrimental to that. Uh, for some people, it's going to be really difficult. And for me, I was one of these people that was like, oh, 65, how am I going to get my room so low and so cool? I would have to pay a lot in electricity. So what I did instead is I got something that's called the Bed Jet. And it's basically an AC for your bed. And it comes with a little AC unit basically, and a fan that blows into a sheet that has holes, and then that sheet you cover yourself with that, and that blows air into the bed. So now it'll keep your bed at a whatever temperature you want to put it. You can put it into if you want in the beginning at a hotter temperature, because some people, if you have really cold hands or really cold feet, it will make it also very difficult to fall asleep. So maybe in the beginning you want to keep it warm, and then you can decrease it and you can modify into putting it into a cooling set, or more cool temperature, and keep that throughout the night. That way your body will be able to stay asleep. So one of the things, as I said, is the Bedjet. There's other stuff out there. There's like the Ooler, like cooler but without the C, so Ooler, or the Chill Pad, and these are actually things that you put underneath on the mattress, and you lay on top of it, and they're basically cooling the bed from underneath there. So you can use that. You can use maybe the Bedjet if you want, and you can, just get your room just cold. That's going to be, the same thing is going to be great for for staying asleep. Another thing is you want to keep the room very, very dark, and this goes for even little lights. If you have like a TV in your bed, and you're like there's like that red light, so that's really important to be covered. You don't want to have light, because that can actually affect, because as we remember, we talked about, how light is really important for our brains to, understand if it's night or day. So if we're putting, other lights around us while we're trying to sleep, that can actually affect us and make us wake up more often throughout the night. If And so that way we want to, try to decrease any lights coming in. So blackout curtains are going to be really good if you're, living somewhere where there's lights from outside. So trying to get it as dark as possible will allow you to get a better night's sleep. Also, any type of, background noise, or, music, or anything that can, disturb you, you want to keep it as quiet as possible. You can, things like that have a monotone frequency to it, like white noise and things like that, are okay, because they're very monotone. Whereas if you have like the TV going off, you're going to have the light, which is not going to help. And also, if you have the volume up, and there's, some type of action scene or something, and then it raises and it goes down and it keeps on, fluctuating, and you hear that volume, then that can affect your sleep and can wake you up throughout the night. So trying to get rid of, best is to take, if you have a TV in your room, it's best to not have it there. Keep it in your living room, because you want your bedroom to be, set up in a way and inviting for you to go to bed. The other thing is clean air. So making sure you air out throughout the day, the room, getting clean air inside, maybe having some plants that'll help with, clearing out the oxygen in the room is going to be important, which will help overall, your lungs, and for you to, sleep better. And then also, making sure that you get an organic mattress, pillow, your sheets. You don't want, chemicals and toxic things on these, because a lot of times, especially mattresses, will have like boric acid or melamine resin, which is or a flame retardant. So you want to make sure that those fumes, because they don't smell like anything, so you won't even realize that they're, that's happening, but they will release fumes, and you're going to be breathing that in all night, which can cause later on things like cancer, hormonal disturbances, and things like that. So that's something. If you're like in the market to buy a new mattress, I would say trying to make sure that you get something that's organic, that you know what it's made out of. And now there's a lot of companies that do have organic mattresses. If you have an older, mattress, and you don't really know what it's made of, and if it does have, these, different toxins on it, then you can get a cover that you can put it, basically you put your whole mattress in that, and it will help decrease any of those fumes coming out and being released in the air, and having you inhale those things. So those are some things that you can do just in your bedroom to prepare it. Now, before you go to bed, and the way that you want to prepare um, your bed, let me change here this slide. Before you go to sleep, what you want to do is you want to get to bed at the right time. What happens is, a lot of times, especially during the weekends, we will maybe sleep like we'll sleep later on in the night, which can really throw off our routine. So trying to keep a routine is going to be really important. So the same time that you go to bed and you wake up, you want to do that throughout the whole week and not only during like your weekdays. So you want to have a consistency. That's going to really, really, really help with your sleep overall. Our bodies like the routine and will help solidify that circadian rhythm. So, picking a time that you're going to go to bed and wake up is going to be vital, and trying to, keep with that. Avoiding screens. You want to avoid screens basically an hour prior to going to bed. And I would say about even like 2 hours prior, getting something that's going to block those. That blue light is going to be really important, because that blue light is what basically makes our brain think that it's still daytime, and we get a lot of that blue light from our phones, from our TVs, from LED lights at work, all these, we're always surrounded with these lights. So trying to, get away from those, blue lights is going to be important. One of the things that I have that helps me with that is these blue light glasses that help block. So these block the blue light, and that's why if you see here, the shade is orange here, and this is what you want to see. You want to, make sure that you get a good quality ones, because there's a lot of them that are not that good. This one, the brand is called Swanwick. And they're one of the better brands out there. So I like to wear these, once I go to, go to bed, once before I go to bed, like I want around like 8 o'clock and I'm winding down, I'm going to start going to wear that. Even when I'm watching TV, I'll wear those glasses. Just that way I'm starting to block out that blue light so that my body can start knowing that it's time to go to bed. I also will start dimming down the lights. That's another thing that you want to do. And you can actually change your light bulbs into night light bulbs. And this is again Swanwick, and they have specific light bulbs that are that don't have any blue light in them. So they basically look like a orange, basically like an orange light bulb. This is the night light that they have here, and this is again the brand that I was saying, the Swanwick. So this is the night light that I have in the bathroom. So if I do have to go to the bathroom and I wake up at night, I am not, turning on like lights and I'm blasting them so that I can go to sleep immediately once I go back into the bedroom. So getting a orange lights and trying to block any of those, LED lights is going to be really important. Changing maybe some of your light bulbs with, the orange light bulbs, that's going to be really good. And that way you can still have some lights on, but they're not going to have that blue light in there that's going to excite your brain and make you think that this is day still. You also want to start, you want to prepare by wearing nice loose clothing that are, not too tight on you. You want to be comfortable. Taking a bath or a shower is going to can be really important to just relax you. I know that we talked about reducing the core temperature, and you would think like taking a hot shower will do that, but actually it actually opens when you're out of the shower, your pores will open up and it will release heat. So actually it does help to reduce your core temperature and also be generally relaxing for your body to fall asleep. You can also do infrared saunas are really good, because that really helps with also the melatonin that gets secreted. What they've seen that is with infrared, it also has a healing component, but it also helps release melatonin from a subcellular level. So that we do have melatonin secreted from our pineal gland, which is in our brain, but we also in our mitochondria, which is that energy factory of our cells. There is melatonin there too. And also melatonin actually acts like an antioxidant as well. And it can actually trigger other antioxidants to work, like a vitamin E or glutathione. So having infrared actually is really important. It can release more melatonin, which will make us sleepy, but also it will help just to to get rid of that oxidative stress and help our bodies heal better. So infrared sauna is a great thing to do if you want to do it, before you go to bed, because it's going to get your body into that sleep mode. Another thing is reading a book. Instead of having, your phones and watching TV, I like an hour before I go to bed is to, maybe grab a book, or I'll listen to maybe some kind of relaxing podcast, or do maybe a breathing technique or something like that, which will help me sleep better. So if you grab a book, even if it's boring, that's even better, because that's going to definitely put you to sleep within a few sentences that you read. So, getting away from your screens again, trying to get a tangible book is going to be great. Then another thing to think about is when we go to sleep is being comfortable in the position that we're sleeping and not causing more stress on our bodies by the way that we pick to sleep. So there's three main ways you can sleep. You're either going to be on your back, on your side, or on your stomach. So I would say the stomach, sleeping down like that probably is the worst way to sleep, because if you think about it, you're never going to be rotated in this position on one side for, like, 6, 7 hours. So you want to make sure that you're in a position where it's not going to cause more stress to your body. So sleeping on your back actually is one of the better positions. To make it even more comfortable, you want to get something that will support your neck curvature, because we do have we have a curve in our neck, around 45-degree curve. So we want to make sure that we help that. So getting a pillow that maybe has a curve, or you can use a little, like, just even roll a towel and put it behind your neck, something like that, that's going to allow for your head to be rested and be in a comfortable position. Putting too many pillows is going to make your neck go forward, which is not going to be good at all, and it's going to cause more tightness and neck pain the next day. So putting, as I said, that roll behind your neck, and then another one behind your low back, at that small of your low back, that's going to be helping that curve as well. And then you can put a pillow underneath your knees, just take tension off of your spine. When it comes to the side, you want to get a pillow that will be basically as big as your shoulder, that's going to support you. You don't want to have too many pillows where it's going to kink you up like this, or no pillows where now you're going to be like this, because all that can cause now strain to your muscles and your neck. So you want something that's going to support you. Try to not get into that fetal position again, where you're curled down, because that's going to cause stress to the neck as well. And you can always put a pillow in front of your body here to keep you more upright, and you can support also your shoulder. That way it's not rolling over, so you can keep your arm on the pillow. And then putting a pillow in between your knees will help keep your pelvis in line as well. If you cannot sleep any other way but on your stomach, then I would suggest putting a pillow underneath half of your torso here, which will elevate a little bit your positioning. That way you're not completely, like, all the way, twisted. You have a little bit less tension on the neck in that position. And also slowly that can also help you transition to being more of a side sleeper than on your stomach there. And then another thing I know that is a really big thing for a lot of people, and they'll tell me, I can't calm down that chatter in my brain. I think about all these things. I'm thinking about all the things I have to do the next day. So when you're having that, start, a lot of the things that we already talked to about will help you, will help to decrease that. But another thing that you can do if you find yourself not being able to sleep because you're overthinking about all these things, then writing down and having a journal will be really helpful. That way you get all those thoughts out. Maybe even planning your day for the next day, knowing that these are the things that are going to happen. That way you take some stress off of you, and you're not thinking about it overnight. Also, you can, meditate or pray, or doing some breathing techniques and things like that are going to really help calm down that chatter. There's other things that can cause a lot of stress in our life. So sometimes even having a therapist and talking through these issues and these stressors can be really helpful in reducing that that chatter and that ongoing overthinking mind there. As I said again in the beginning of this slide, keeping your routine is going to be really important, even if it's on weekends. I know obviously there's going to be vacation days, right? You're going to be doing things. You're going to go to a birthday party. You're going to stay a little bit later, late at night. That's okay. That's going to happen. We're humans. We're going to socialize, but we want to, as much as we can, to keep our routine. Though, if you're not doing anything that weekend, don't stay up just watching, binging on Netflix or doing something like that. Try to keep and maintain your schedule there, your sleep schedule. You'll be really thankful about that when Sunday comes along, because if you have been, sleeping late all, Friday and Saturday and waking up late, then Sunday is going to be really hard to go to sleep early, and it's going to be even harder to wake up early to go to work. So, making sure you stick at your with your sleep routine is going to be really important there. So before I finish off, I have a few things, as I showed you already, that have helped me with my sleep. So I showed you the glasses here that block the blue light. Transitioning with some light bulbs to having the orange light bulbs like this. Um, Also, another thing that can help with sleep is like magnesium lysate, which you can take at nighttime, which will relax your muscles. There are also sprays that have magnesium, just like this one here, which can also, you can put it on different areas that are sore if you've been working out a lot, and it can help with the soreness there so that you can get a better night's sleep. I like the glycinate more. I think it works better for me, but some people would prefer to have like a topical thing like this spray, which has magnesium. Another book that I've read that I really like is Sleep Smarter. So this book is written by Sean Stevenson, and it's a really good book because it really walks you through on the benefits of sleep, obviously, and what happens if you don't sleep. But it also has a lot of like a plan, and it has even like a guide, and it walks you through on how to get a better sleep. So I really like this book. Also, Matthew Walker is a sleep scientist that basically have devoted his life on researching sleep, and he also has a book called Why We Sleep, and that's a really good book too. It doesn't really give you so many tips, I would say. The Sleep Smarter has more tips, but that one really breaks down the science and what happens in our body when we're not getting enough sleep. And then the other thing that I mentioned was the bed jet, as I said, that can really help to keep your bedroom cool. And then I also have this tracker, which is called the Aura Ring, which I'm actually wearing right now. And I like this because, unlike I guess the Fitbit or like your maybe your Apple Watch that can also track sleep and everything, this is just there just for that reason. I'm not looking into tell me the time. It's not, I'm not getting messages through it. It's just for tracking my sleep and my daily activities, basically. And this is one of the better ones that are out there. I know also Whoop is really similar to this, and it's a band actually that you wear. It's like a bracelet, and they're both pretty good. And it can tell me, how I sleep at night. Like, for example, I can show you here the app when you open it up. So it looks like this. It will give you a score of how you slept, and then it'll tell you how ready you are for the day. It also tracks your temperature, which can be important for especially females that are tracking their menstrual cycle, and temperatures are really change throughout our cycles. So if you're trying to keep track on that, it's really helpful with that, with tracking your periods and everything. It also tracks your steps, all that stuff that you need, but it really breaks down how you have slept and what your sleep looked like throughout the night. So it'll give you like a whole little chart and tell you how long you slept in your deep sleep, how long did you spend in your light REM, all that. So if you're really like curious to see if you're actually sleeping well and if you're getting, a good quality sleep, then I would say getting a tracker like this and actually really being able to measure how you're sleeping is really good. And I have here on this slide a discount code. So if you're looking and you're wanting to buy something like that, that's will give you a discount on buying a ring. So that is it. That's all I had for you today. So I hopefully this is going to help you, get a better night's sleep and really help you understand how important it is to get that good night of sleep.